Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thanks for joining us today. I'm JQ Hanna. I am the Interim Executive Director of Food Co-op Initiative, and we have a special session we're doing today that I'm really glad you're joining us for. And we're going to be talking with Faye Mack, FCI's Executive Director of our last 2 years, about her accomplishments, the work she's done with FCI, about her insights into the movement, and what will be coming next for her. As many of you may or may not have caught in our emails and our social media, unfortunately, Faye will be leaving us at the end of this month, and I will be stepping in. But we wanted to take some time and capture some of the accomplishments, the wisdom, and some of the incredible things that Faye has accomplished in her time here. And we are so glad you're joining us. We're treating this kind of like a live interview. So if you've got questions, comments you want to add to the conversation, please put them in the chat. I will happily integrate them as we go along our conversation. But I'm gonna kind of play Barbara Walters for those of us who are older today. And so I will be leading us off in our conversation. So first, thank you, Faye, for humoring us and being willing to come and talk to us and share with us. We know this was kind of our idea as the staff to spring on Faye, but we wanted this opportunity to really talk about what she's accomplished, how she set us up for success, and where she will be heading next. So thank you, Faye.
JQ. Oh, it's such a fun opportunity. So I'm excited.
Excellent. Well, what I want to start with, so you joined us, was it was about it was a little over 2 years ago now. When exactly was it? November of
Yeah, I started Thanksgiving week of 2022. Yes. So a little almost 2.5 years, but not quite.
not okay, not quite 2.5 years with us. Excellent. And I remember we were nervous finding somebody who has both the knowledge and passion for nonprofit work and the ability to bring a lot of professionalism to that and that experience, but also understanding food justice and possibly, hopefully, the cooperative movement. That was like one of those like it would be a bonus if they knew something about co-ops. And then we met you, and I'm not gonna speak it all for you, how lucky we got, but what attracted you to this position? Why did you even decide to take a chance on FCI?
Yeah. Well, I had been a little bit of a fan of FCI and specifically of you, JQ, which you know, but I had like many was a fan of FCI and a fan of a lot of the work that you were doing, JQ, because FCI has for a long time been matching co-ops, which I just love and always really was drawn to with food justice and food sovereignty. And that balance together, bringing those two pieces together was really important for me. And so prior to joining FCI, I had been doing food systems work for a very long time, predominantly focusing on food justice and addressing food access and food security for folks through programs like SNAP and school meals, but also with co-ops. And so I was really looking for a new opportunity to kind of bring that mission-driven work around food justice into a new realm, and was really drawn to FCI in that way. I had been I had also been engaged with co-ops. So I have worked at a co-op as a cashier, and I had been on the board of a co-op for almost a decade. I had been part of a regional federation of co-ops, and so I really loved co-ops, but that was always kind of separate from my work. And what I was really excited about was that FCI seemed to share the vision that I had of what co-ops could be, and what a powerful economic driver and community change kind of lever point it could be to bring cooperation into food system work. And so I felt like I found my little unicorn of bringing this thing that I always had on the side, this love of co-ops and of food co-ops into a passion around food justice work. So yeah.
I'm going to take us on a small detour here, but I even just recently found out that I don't know if those of you who are with existing food co-ops, you know that over the last decade or so, we've worked really hard to get this this snap match program into food co-ops and make it accessible, which is where usually there's grant funds from I think it's federal to state and then the state, but state by state could take up these funds and allow grocery stores and farmers markets to offer SNAP beneficiaries these matching dollars to utilize, usually for fresh produce, but for different things. And it's been a challenge over the years to get it, broaden it, to make it accessible to food co-ops, to get it into every state. I just found out recently that Faye was intrinsic in some of this process up in the Northeast. So I'm just going to make her talk about that for a second.
Yeah, yeah. So in my work before joining Food Co-op Initiative, I had been part of an organization called Hunger Free Vermont, and it's a anti-hunger kind of policy-focused organization in the state of Vermont. And I got to partner with Bonnie Hudsmith, who at the time was with the neighboring Food Co-op Association, and Mika Josephi, who's now the executive director at Cooperative Fund of the Northeast, and he was in a different role there at the time. And the three of us were really excited to build from some of the work that a couple of food co-ops in the Northeast and elsewhere in the country had done to create food for all programs. So those were really more focused on kind of holistically how, as an existing co-op, can we do a better job of being inclusive and welcoming in the full community and really bucking the perception that co-ops are elite and only for people with a lot of money and only for people who cook from scratch exclusively and bake their own bread so these programs were designed to help co-ops take a look at everything from, is there a bus stop and bike racks near their co-op? And if not, could they go talk to their town about having a bus stop so that it's accessible to people without private transportation? Do they have welcoming language and welcoming signage and, how to kind of do an audit of their co-op for welcomingness and inclusivity, and connected with that around offering discount programs. And so we worked with, I think in one year we worked with 9 or 10 co-ops in the Northeast to help expand and help them all launch these kinds of programs that provided discounts in the grocery store. And part of my job was to work with USDA to make sure that the programs were legal and sound. And then that kind of legal document was able to be used throughout the country to help launch these programs. And then they partner really well with those double up bucks programs that were funded federally that a lot of co-ops have been able to tap into to be able to add an additional kind of discount, but a lot of ways to try to help make food within the co-op more affordable and accessible without doing it on the backs of local producers and businesses too. So kind of recognizing where the lower margin points can come from. So yeah, that was a fun passion project. I loved it. And it's so great to still see it around and how much it's grown too.
And how much it has grown. So when you go into your local food co-op and you see the Double Up Bucks program, Faye had a lot to do with that. You can see why we were excited. We did not expect to find somebody with the depth of Faye's nonprofit experience, and as well as cooperative knowledge and just real passion. I'm just gonna real passion not only for for the food movement, but for food justice, for a way of respectful with, not for food activism and work, and combining that with cooperatives. It was kind of like you called it a unicorn job. I think we all felt we found a unicorn when we found to say it was kind of an incredible thing. And I did want to ask you, so when you were took on this role, what were you excited to tackle? I mean, the moment FCI was in, what did you see as ripe to be tackled to grow and improve what FCI was already doing?
Yeah. So I talked about kind of that mission driven area and part of that motivation. And that's what drew me to FCI. And then what made me really excited to take on this role as executive director and this job was kind of the practicality, the practical needs of the organization at that moment in time at the start of 2023, and the experiences that I had to bring. So I in previous work had done a lot of strategic planning with different kinds of groups, um, helping through pretty formal strategic planning processes and less formal strategic planning processes, and also have been part of leadership in organizations as they've hit sort of transformative moments of maturity. Every organization goes through periods of evolution. Teams go through different periods of evolution, and FCI was really primed for a moment of growth, of kind of grounding and growth at the same time. And what was exciting was that the board and the staff led with that in the hiring process. They said, we want a strategic plan. We want to think about where we're going. We want to grow. We want to expand. Help us do that. Can you help us do that? And that was really fun and exciting for the kind of wonky part of my brain. And so I was really excited to help lead the organization through a really collective and collaborative strategic planning process to help FCI really be able to see and communicate its space within the startup food co-op movement, and name its goals and its priorities and how it was going to move forward. Um, and the other two pieces I was really excited for is that I really love team building and staff culture and organizational culture, and there was desire expressed for that work as well from the staff and board. So I was really excited to kind of take on a new team and help us together all create kind of the work environment and the space that we wanted to be doing our work in, and how we wanted to show up for each other and for the startups that we work with and the partners. Um, and then the last piece that I was really excited for was around storytelling. So it was one of the pieces that I kind of identified when coming into FCI, was that I was blown away in the interview process by how much FCI does and how impactful the organization is. And I didn't see that story being fully told. And so that was something that was important to me coming in, was just helping to tell the story of FCI and its impact, and then the really transformative story of what startups are doing in their communities and the power of startups in a more powerful way. So those were my three big goals, little goals in my
Little tiny
first
goals.
year coming in.
I think that's something that was incredibly powerful, as someone who was on the staff at the time, and I think probably for our board as well, is that one of the first things Faye said is FCI is doing such an incredible amount of work and doing such incredible work, and no one's talking, you're not talking about it. You're not talking about it. And really helped us to see that and get that story out there. I wanted to ask you a little more about that. I'm going to lean in because not everybody understands the power of storytelling. I think quite often we're like nose to the ground, just trying to get the work done. And I think our startups who are on the call will relate to this. Often we're pushing them to talk more, tell the story more. 'Cause like we're just trying to secure a building, we're just trying to do a market study, we're just trying to. And I feel like there's been a really big transformation in how connected people feel to the startup food co-op movement through the storytelling that you really centered in your 2 years with FCI. And I just invite you to talk a little more about that and why you
Yeah.
think that's important.
I mean, I think it's so central and it's so hard to do, especially when you're a small startup or a small organization with limited staff. I mean, it was something that we just added to our plates, and that was hard for us as staff. I knew that it was a stretch; it was an additional piece of work, and its payoffs are so interspersed everywhere that it can be hard to see, the direct payoff sometimes, but it happens over time, and then it is transformative. And when you're in the work day to day, what you're doing can feel kind of boring. Like, why would anybody be interested in this? And I think this is very true for startups too. Like, I don't know, we just had another meeting. Do we really need to tell people about that? Or it can feel like you're bragging or talking about yourself or centering yourself as an organization or as an employee or as a startup too much. But in reality, you're thinking about it all the time. So it feels like too much to you, but it's not too much for anybody else because they're also thinking about their work and their to-do list and their grocery shopping and what's going on in the news and everything and everything. And so that storytelling is is really powerful in part because it helps build community and builds connections. So I think the way that FCI focuses on its storytelling about what FCI is doing, but also about the startups and what the startups are doing, is to help share and build connection because this work can be really isolating. Starting a co-op is a huge endeavor that people are taking on in their own community, and you can feel like you're all alone and all your problems are unique. And so by sharing stories about what is happening, and then also in turn what FCI is doing, it helps everybody do better. and feel less alone in it. And that was something that JQ I really saw from you and the work with the peer groups, especially was around how FCI was working to build networks and build communities so that a co-op forming in Southern California was connected to one in Michigan and one in Georgia, and they could all talk about their commonalities and learn from each other. And just making that even more and really leaning into that, I think is really important. And helps people build new connections and create, and there are a lot of folks who everyone's coming to the co-op idea from different perspectives. It might be a food justice, or it might be a real love of local produce and wanting to see more of it and love of local farmers. It might be environmental reasons. Everyone has different reasons, and so through all these platforms, we can help weave them together and really share the power of what a co-op could do.
I think that really came out too, and I want to kind of share a reflection that to those who don't know, a lot of you who do, CCMA is the name of the National Conference for Food Co-ops, but it's aimed at open established food co-ops, and it's been going on for decades. It's an amazing conference, and I think Faye, I thought was something was really interesting is that last year was actually Faye went to CCMA and brought forward FCI's story. And I have not heard ever before from so many GMs and people who work within the established food co-op movement, as I did over those few months after that, about how much the startup movement energized them to do what they do and reminded them that we are a movement, not just we are a business, but we are businesses that are a movement and really excited them, galvanized them. I feel like you did an amazing job connecting the larger food co-op movement to the startup movement and helping us see one another's family who feed one another. And I just wondered if you wanted to share any reflections on that.
Yeah, thank you. It's a really kind thing to say. And it was my first time going to CCMA since 2018 when I went as a board member of my local food co-op in Burlington, Vermont. And I didn't know anything about startups then. The co-op that I was part of had been around for 40 or 50 years. And I just kind of thought that everybody was sort of like that. And I knew about a couple starting here and there, but I didn't understand that it was a community and a movement. And this past year in Maine, going to CCMA, we were able to share from the stage, really gracefully, the organizers from CCMA gave us some space to share a little bit about what was going on with startups and what was coming up. And it's really there's incredible innovations happening with existing and longstanding co-ops, but the innovations that are coming from the startup food co-ops are profound and changing who co-ops are for, what co-ops are about, why co-ops exist, what the why is, and that really came across. So I mean, really all I was doing was sharing stories about all of you and what you all are doing, and you all helped me make look really good. But those stories are really inspiring for people who are looking to think about something a little bit differently. And it kind of shakes it up a little bit. And I think, I mean, running a food co-op is a hard business, right? The margins are low. If you're a board member, you're trying to figure out all these financials and making sure that staff are happy and that you can afford to pay health insurance. And, it's the day to day. And I think that startups are bringing like a little bit of a reminder of like, why do we all do this? Because that's what they're being driven by right now. Right. And I think that's a really nice recentering. And the
Absolutely.
energy at CCMA was great around that.
Absolutely. And I think has continued since that. I'm going to circle us back just to the strategic plan for a minute, which is so for those
Mhm.
I know most gentlemen here is probably heard of a strategic plan process, been through one, maybe run one, but it's this big process, all the input from those you serve and those who are involved in the work and our own team, and in all of that, I know a lot of what we did was solidify some values that had already been really being acted upon and growing at FCI, but there are some real subtle shifts that I think profoundly changed our work that came up through that strategic process that you led, that you really helped us find. And I wonder, I mean, I could name one or two, but I'm like, to you, what were some of the things that came out of that you think shifted and helped FCI be better at what it was doing?
Yeah. I'm so proud of the strategic plan. If you haven't looked at it, you should go look at it. I just think it's such a great document and it's really useful. We use it all the time as we're guide as our foundation. And that's really neat because they often end up dusty on a shelf somewhere or like lost in a Google Drive.
Right? That's the
And
biggest
ours is
compliment
really
is it's a
present.
living document that we use every
Yeah.
day.
And so, from my perspective, a couple of the major pieces that have helped they haven't, I don't think that since we published a strategic plan, fundamental work of FCI hasn't changed, but how we do it and where we're prioritizing and how we're showing up has shifted. And some of the pieces that I think, and I'm curious, JQ, if you would agree with me or if you have others, but um, one of the big ones was that the FCI board and staff vote. I mean, we took a vote on this, voted to agree that equity is at our center as an organization. And that means a lot of different things, right? To a lot of different people. And to us, it really is centering food justice in the work that we do, and that's the why, that it's around um, folks having the food future, right, that they want in their community and having it be really community driven. And so for us, that kind of where the startup co-op movement is right now in terms of the part of it that we're a part of and really present in means that where we focused is in kind of who we're making our products for and who we're here to serve at the first and foremost are communities who've experienced racial oppression and or economic oppression. And by centering those communities who have additional barriers to success, in addition to all the other barriers that every community faces in opening a successful and long-lasting food co-op, it helps everybody. And that has been a really powerful lens to make our priorities in and think about how we're structuring our work. And the other one too, I think that was really profound was that we named startup food co-ops as a movement, and we said that we want to be at the table in those conversations and in thinking about the future of food co-ops and where the food co-op movement and where startups and where just cooperation in general is headed. We're in those conversations and we want to be in those conversations and we have vision and we um, want to roll up our sleeves and do that work. And I think that space, naming that really explicitly, was new for FCI and has um, helped us with a more relationship building and collaboration at all times kind of approach to the work that we do. And a part of that, I think, is really driven by that piece of the strategic plan.
I would agree. I can't remember the exact wording we came to, but something that was it might feel like a subtle shift, but I think was huge for us as FCI. It was like an ethos, but we named it and then started really living from it was we are kind of the center pole of a big tent of a movement. The FCI is here to center and feed and serve a movement. We are not the movement. And
Mhm.
and we're not the experts. We are some experts that are holding a space that have been invited to hold a space for a movement. And bring all those voices to the table and help them find each other, meet each other, and be more effective as a movement. But I think that's a shift that you don't see in our society in general very often. Sure, we have a lot of expertise, but we are not the movement. We are not here to tell you what to do. We're here to assist you, to help you, to hold the movement and to help it grow. And I wondered if you just wanted to lean into how you see that a little bit, because I think you helped us name that, and that became a real lightning rod to acting on something that we've been loosely moving from for years. And I think people felt that about
Mhm.
FCI, but I think it's been turbocharged since it's been named.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the things that drew me to FCI too, is that um, I saw that the way that FCI's work was organized was being led by what startup cooperators needed, what they were asking for, and what they were coming up with. And I think that that's really critical, and we've leaned into that and grown from that. And so, um, it's present in things like FCI Live, which is coming up, right? Where FCI is giving a few of the sessions, but not most of them. And there are so many. Um, so many experts, and the way that startup cooperators become the experts by doing the work, and we're here to help create that platform in a way that I think that there's both there's this is like such a phrase, but there's power and responsibility in being that center pole to the tent, as you were saying, JQ, in that um, we're here to create a platform and a space for learning and to share what we're seeing and to help take what we're seeing and reflect it back in a package that is useful for people, and to really hear and learn. And the new co-op development framework is a really nice reflection of that. We were hearing that the model wasn't serving everybody, and we were hearing the different ways, and we were seeing all of the different everyone's unique experiences. But from our vantage point, we're able to pull the common threads that everybody is experiencing, even in their own unique way, and bring that together. But it was done in response to what we were being asked for and what we were seeing. And creating tools like that is a really important piece of the responsibility, to not just create a platform where where there are a lot of new speakers and new ideas coming in, but then doing the work to look at what's working and what's not working, to help people move forward with more success. Because what we really want is for startups to succeed in the long term. We want more 40-year-old startups around, or co-ops around.
Mhm.
Um, we want people to be able to open doors. We want people to run great grocery stores. And we also want communities to have that transformative experience of what community organizing does and cooperative building does. And that it takes everybody together, but it also means that there needs to be sort of thought put behind what people are doing and how to do it, and to learn from each other.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to be asking you some more of your thoughts on food co-ops and what startups are up against and stuff. But before we pivot to that, um, what have been some of your very favorite parts of this role in your time with FCI?
Yeah. Um, I mean, I have so loved learning from all of the different folks doing this work. I live in Vermont. JQ lives in the middle of the country. Like, everyone is all over. I've never had that experience before. I've had colleagues in different parts of the country, but not where there's a community that's nationwide. And this community is, and I've had the opportunity to learn from so many different people and experience so many different communities, and see what folks are doing. And I I am very inspired by the work that people put in. I mean, it's profound. It's one thing to have a vision and to imagine your beautiful store someday, but the work that gets put in to get there is so it's incredible what people are giving to their community. And I have found that really inspiring and really fun. And the thing that I think is somewhat unique to this community is that there's a real commitment to the vision and to the community, what you're building, but there's a commitment to doing it with joy and celebration. And that has been just really incredible to be able to be part of. The work can be long and tiring, and it can take years, and you can feel stuck, or you can have setbacks that are out of your control. And so I think everyone knows that. And the response is, well, let's celebrate what we have as we get it. And there's just joy. There's joy in community building, and we need that. And so the opportunities to talk with people and hear stories and be in space has been just the most fun.
I can't disagree with any of that. But you did give me out my opening. It was like, in all the years and all the tiredness and oh my God, all the work that we have to put in to open these startups, all of us. Um, what are some of your thoughts after being this close to the movement and in the center of the movement for 2.5 years? What are some of your thoughts on what are the biggest challenges that the startup food co-op movement faces in this moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's really complex. And this is something, you mentioned me going to CCMA last year, and it was one of the conversations I had with a lot of board members and GMs was especially the ones who've been around for a long time, is that running a co-op has gotten more complex, but starting a co-op has gotten so complicated and so expensive that it just becomes more and more. It's a much more, it becomes more and more like there's more nuance to how to open, and there are more pieces, more moving parts, there's more regulation, and all of that, and it's a lot to navigate, which is why I'm so proud that there are organizations like FCI there, because I can't imagine folks doing it without that kind of support and guidance. um, but it's getting more complicated and complex, and the other challenge I think too is that um, co-ops do such a great job that consumers and owners' expectations are high and much higher than they were during some of the other waves of co-op development, in terms of what folks are getting and what they want in order to make it successful. So I just think it's a more exciting but a bigger hill to climb to open a food co-op than it used to be. And right now we're in a period of uncertainty as a lot of the ground is shifting, and different patterns or parts of the process that were kind of set in stone are sort of shifting right now as so many pieces of our economy and processes are shifting. So it takes a lot, and as people are facing lots of different draws on time and energy and focus in individuals and as communities. Centering the startup and kind of keeping that in the center of a community just takes a lot of work. So
Absolutely does. You're right.
yeah.
Um, So what I want to bring this up, I want to move us to, you've led FCI through some very uncertain times in the world as a whole. And they continue to be uncertain times, possibly even more uncertain. And what do you think is the role of cooperation right now in food justice? As someone who's been centered in food justice for a long time, what do you think is the role of cooperation in this moment of food justice in our world?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I mean, I think, I just talked about how complex and how challenging it is, but I also think that there's never been more opportunity for a co-op and cooperation to be more powerful and more impactful. And um, from a food justice perspective, a lot of food justice work historically has not been justice oriented. And it's not come from a place of, um, when you succeed, we all succeed, we all rise together. It hasn't come from a place of solidarity. It has come historically often from a place of charity or othering, in the way that it has been done. And it's been band-aid approaches, right? A lot of it, not all of it. But a lot of the way that food security and food access has been addressed has been with band-aid approaches and in a very othering, let me help you, kind of way. And that doesn't cause transformation, and it doesn't heal. And that's what's really needed. And I think that cooperation and the cooperative model and the way that cooperation requires community organizing, is solidarity building, it is community building, and it is healing. And so I, to build food sovereignty within communities to support, um, equitable and life-giving food systems that are good for the environment and good for the people. Um, it requires people working together. And so I think that it's really necessary if we want to actually transform to have other problems to go work on. Like can we solve something and move to something else? It requires cooperation and it requires people working together. And one of the pieces that I've been so inspired by startups is seeing, I mean, people get into it because they want a grocery store and they want a food co-op and, they have their reason for that. but what the process of opening a food co-op does for a community can be so profound in building power
Mm.
and new community leaders and a shared vision for a community of what's possible, that goes way beyond food and where you buy your groceries. And that's what is needed right now for communities to ground and to thrive. So I don't think there's ever been a more important time for cooperation.
Wow, absolutely. Can you guys see why we were really excited when she joined our team and and why we've been so honored to work with her? I guess that gives me my opportunity to pivot. And anyone who's here probably knows that Faye is leaving us at the end of this month. And relationship with FCI will be changing, not ending. But can you want to do anything you'd like to share about why you're leaving and what's next for you?
Yeah. So it's been a really incredible almost 2.5 years with FCI, and the decision to leave has been really bittersweet. And as JQ knows, because he has been in the throes of it with me, it's been a planned transition for a number of months now, and we've been building toward this, and FCI is going to launch from this transition. Um, and I decided to leave because I realized I'm an in-person person is really what I realized. This work is national and fully remote, and it's been a great, I think that, and that's how it should be. That's why FCI is so powerful, and why the startup community is so powerful is that it's communities connecting from all across the country. And I realized that for me individually, there are ways that I hope to stay tapped into that network. But for my kind of day-to-day professional life, what I'm really hoping to do is to take what I've learned and reground in my own community. So I'll be not sure exactly what I'm doing next, but I'm going to be working to transition into something a little bit more in person. And um, it has been a really good time for this. So, one thing I want to share back as a reflection is that we've talked a lot about how FCI has kind of the pieces of transformation that FCI has undergone. And we have the strategic plan that now we've lived into for a year or so, and we've spent a lot of time over the last couple of years investing in relationships, both internally among staff and board, but then also externally with partners. And I think that it helps the movement be better, and it helps our impact be stronger because we're a small staff, but not really because we work so closely with so many people. And FCI is at a point of really taking off in that. And I think the startup movement is too. And so it's a good time for a transition to happen and for TQ for you to step in as the next leader. Although you've been a leader all along.
Possibly. But I wanted to, so are we gonna still see you in the food co-op movement? Where are you, are
Yeah.
I want to tell you right now already. I'm gonna pop the bubble here. I've already made her commit to an FCI live session for next year. So we're
Yes.
not letting A go anywhere. And actually, I think the moment we're in is going to take a lot more of us thinking as a movement about engaging with representatives, government, and so forth. And Faye has a background in doing exactly that. So we're inviting her back to do that. And she agreed. But are there other ways that you hope to stay engaged with the movement?
I do, yeah. I live in Vermont, which is one of the states. I think it has the most food co-ops per capita. There's one everywhere you throw a rock, and I'm really grateful for that. So I'm really hoping to be able to stay engaged as a cooperator, in the food co-op world, and beyond. And so, um, I'm here. I'm ready to sign up and talk to folks and share what I bring and to continue to learn. So I do hope to continue to be in this space. I think that once you get in, you don't ever really leave, is what I have learned. So I'll still be here, and I am. excited to cheerlead and amplify all of the work the FCI is doing and all the work the startups are doing. There's so many startups that I can't wait to come shop in your stores someday as I'm traveling around. And it's a good excuse to sort of to find new places to go. So I've got some in my mind.
Well, before we and there will be a moment, we'll have a moment if anybody wants to at the end here to unmute, to ask questions or share thoughts with Faye. But before we do that, I think what I'm gonna wrap up with here is one of my favorite Faye quotes, which is that there has never been a more complicated or challenging time to start a food co-op, nor has there ever been a more important or powerful time to start a food co-op. And it's one of my very favorite Faye quotes. So I'm going to wrap us up there and thank Faye for 2.5 years of incredible leadership that we are excited to continue to build from. And if there
Thank
are
you.
people who want to unmute, ask questions, or share comments before we close, please feel free to do so or put them in the chat. I know a lot of people are observing while eating. Alan, go ahead.
Well, thanks. Well, I just want to wish you all the best, Ray, and I enjoy working with you and wish you continued successes. And I'm really excited to hear about your how things will come when it comes with further addressing community food insecurity, because with every single, especially existing and food co-op startups, I'm challenging them now with, especially with impending cuts in SNAP and WIC, that there are ways to empower the board to set up really good programs, and happy to chat more some other time about it, but there are some really good grassroots efforts that are going on at the community level to help do that, and food co-ops can play a role. So,
Absolutely.
you know, stay strong, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Alan,
You're
thanks.
welcome.
And one thing I want to add, maybe in response to that I was thinking about is in thinking about the time that we're in right now and the kind of uncertainty and upheaval, one of the things I really learned in my time at FCI is that co-ops and cooperation is our history, not just it's not new. It's our history. It's the foundation of so many leaders, especially Black Americans and Native Americans. It's the history of community organizing and solidarity movements. And so drawing from that history and that foundation is what's going to drive us forward. And it's our future as well. So I appreciate that perspective, Alan. Thank you.
Welcome. Welcome.
Sean, I saw your hand up.
Yes, I just want to wish you well, and may God continue to bless you in your endeavors. And I hope to see you more within the co-op space. You helped us a lot and encouraged us in many ways than one. So I just wanted to say that to you from the North End Co-op in Waterbury.
Thanks, Sean. I can't wait to come to your co-op. I drive through there all the time.
Nice. You got to just let us know when you're in town.
All right.
Anyone else want to ask a question or speak before we wrap up for today? All right. Any final words you want to share with everybody, Faye?
Just thank you all so much. It's been so much fun and such an honor. And I am just feel profoundly privileged to be part of this community and know that I will still be part of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Faye. All right, everyone. Well, on that note, and lots of thank yous are pouring in through in the chat if you want to take a look at them. I think that's a wonderful place to end there, that, we are all in community with each other, no matter what role we're playing in it. Once you've been part of this, you don't leave. So we're so glad to still be in community with you, Faye. And everyone, have a wonderful day.
Thank you all.